There we go. All right, we are streaming. And if you are visually entertained by this show, you'll see it's not just my not so pretty face. It's actually joined by quite a few. So we'll dive in. Heidi, Heidi ho, fellow CMOs. I'm Brett Schklar, managing partner here at Grow Powerful. I'm here with our show producer, marketing manager, and clearly a fractional CMO whisperer, Anna Anderson. And welcome to the Grow Up with Grow show. It's live streamed, it's on our podcast, it's on our Vimeo channel and our YouTube channel, and even on our blog. So basically, we're everywhere. Like Robert De Niro in Meet the Parents, we're everywhere, Fokker. Wherever you listen, we'd love a pat on the back. So if you hit that like or subscribe, or the subscribe and the like, or the follow, that would be awesome. It means the world to us. You're here today so we can figure out what the most important skill or skills are for success as a fractional CMO, how to kick butt, and in particular, in the world of B2B technology, marketing and growth. Quick backgrounder for those who are first-timers. At Grow, we work with the most innovative emerging B2B technology companies that are either VC or PE backed, and put interim marketing leadership in place to fuel the next phase of growth. Through our innovative iCMO model or interim CMO model, we pair the greatest marketing minds with amazing companies to drive awareness, demand, and overall business growth to achieve and exceed objectives. We've got a ton of upcoming shows, not just this one, so go to growpowerful.io and click on the resources and events, and you'll see all kinds of things we've got going on. And now, for the big show, the biggest and best so far, not only because of how many people signed up for this ahead of time, but also because of the fact that we finally have great people to join me in sharing some thoughts and expertise. And these are people who understand and manage the world of B2B technology marketing and B2B technology growth 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times better than I could ever imagine. And so I feel very lucky to have two good friends, two good colleagues in different lives, and two amazing human beings on here. And so I'll have you each introduce yourselves and answer the question, what are you binging right now? Whether it is a movie, or it is a book, or it is an audiobook, or it's a podcast, or it's children's musical shows, whatever it might be. Introduce yourself and then talk to us about what you're binging right now. And Stacey, we're honored and excited to have you here. So I'd love to have you step in, introduce yourself, and talk to us about what you're binging.
Yes, well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and looking forward to this chat today. I'm Stacey Danheiser. Sorry, hold on. My phone's ringing. Okay, I run a Shake Marketing Group. It's a B2B marketing consultancy, and also I'm a fractional CMO and marketing coach for aspiring marketing leaders. I've written a couple of marketing books and spent 14 years in corporate marketing before I decided to go out on my own. So I kind of have a bit of client side, and now I'm on the other side consulting, and all those different experiences kind of bringing it together for B2B organizations. The thing that I am binging right now, or actually just finished it, was Bridgerton. So guilty Netflix pleasure there. I also have a fair amount of books at any given time. I'm reading like 4 or 5 different books, audiobooks, including, fiction and then nonfiction. And one of my favorite ones right now is Atomic Habits. So I'm finally getting into that to structure my day differently.
So actually, Atomic Habits was one of the ones that was recommended to me, and it's on my reading list. I do a lot of Audible, and so it's on there. Excited to hear your thoughts from that. Bridgerton, I am not one to have watched it, but I hear that season 2 isn't quite as steamy as season 1. So
I would agree with that.
yeah, absolutely. Well, and then we've also got with us and I feel very jealous today. I feel jealous because first of all, we've got two people that are way better, faster, and stronger at B2B technology, marketing, and growth than me. But I'm proud that they're on the show. But also, I usually try to have the best hair, and I don't now because we've got long flowing hair from Stacey and from Matt. Matt, people probably can't see the long ponytail, but it's obviously there. We go.
It's
There we
there.
go. So Matt, outside of your hair conditioning and regimen routine, talk to us about yourself and talk to us about what you're binge watching right now. Or
Yeah, I
binge
don't have
reading.
time to binge watch. I got to take care of this all the time. No. Glad to be here. Not sure I can live up to Brett's accolades, and certainly can't live up to Stacey's credentials with being an author and all that amazing stuff. But I've got my notepad here, so I'm ready to take notes and learn from them along the way, and maybe I can contribute a nugget or two as well. I'll do my best. My name is Matt Pesce. I am the managing partner of Resilient Growth Partners. We focus on the commercial aspects of B2B businesses, so strategy, marketing, product, international expansion, things like that are particular specialties. Mostly focused on scale-up companies, that is companies that are either growing rapidly or aspire to grow rapidly and are trying to figure out how to do that. And also with a lot of companies that are looking to expand internationally. So either international companies that want to figure out how to grow in the US, or vice versa, US companies that are wanting to make some forays into foreign lands. So we help them with those things. In terms of binge watching, my wife and I are always looking for things that we can engage our kids with. So Moon Knight, and that's a happy one in the sense of we're not making any sacrifice there because we love it too. So we love the Marvel and Star Wars and all those fun things like that. So that's probably the main one right now.
Got it. Well, very cool. And I'd like to add that, Stacey, you're coming to us live from the Web 3.0 village of Miami, Florida, aka the crypto capital of the world.
Oh, yes. Self-proclaimed, I think, right?
So is life is anything real, or is everything crypto down
I
there?
think, yeah. I mean, what's real is there's a lot of traffic. All the people that are moving here because of this, crypto push and all the relocation of tech companies is definitely stretching the real life situation of the infrastructure. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah.
Did you buy your coffee with crypto? Is what I want to know. I'm going to say no, but I'm going out on a
Not
limb.
yet. I told my kids to go learn about it.
Yeah,
good idea.
I said, you guys tell me what to go do. I don't even understand. I got to get 3 new wallets or something.
And then Matt, you're calling in from Denver, Colorado area, but you just returned from quite an adventure, did you not?
I did. So I spent a week in Dubai for one of my clients.
Wow.
We brought a leadership team together. So I'm a fractional CMO for this client, and we brought the leadership team together from 4 different continents for first time I've ever even met any of these people in person, face to face, which was kind of an amazing experience. But great to be not quite out of the woods yet, but at least at the tail end, hopefully, of the pandemic, and have the opportunity to get together and really have some productive working sessions face to face.
Gotcha. Very cool. That's very exciting. Both of you are going to very exciting places and doing very exciting things. So I appreciate the time you've gotten. You've got to give us some focus and attention here. So on that note, let's dive in. I would like to know, and I'd like to know why and how and what and et cetera, of what are 3 top skills number 3, number 2, number 1, what are 3 top skills that each of you believes a fractional CMO must have in order to succeed? And if your answer is right, you win. And if your answer is wrong, the community will speak. So let me first introduce that we've got quite a few people on the call right now. Would love you to say hello in the chat. Where are you calling from? What brought you here? Would also love that as we are going through our lists, as Stacey and Matt are going through the list, and then I will as well, that you give us your thoughts and perspectives. Agree, disagree? I want to know, and I know that Stacey and Matt, who are very good at understanding and listening to customers and teaching people how to listen to customers, want to know as well. So let's dive in. I think we'll just go in alphabetical order here of last names. So Stacey, what are the top 3 things, top 3 skills, top 3 knowledge thingies that people must have to succeed as a fractional CMO?
Okay, you want me to go through all 3 right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the first, I'll give you a little context that McKinsey did a study of the different types of CMOs. And they found that 49% are what they call the friend, which is somebody that generally connects with 1 or 2 members of the C-suite, but they don't really have overall control of customer experience. 27% are considered a loner, which means they're great at marketing and typically really good at marketing communications and execution, but not so great at kind of bringing the team together and driving growth. And the third type was what they called unifier. That was 24%. And these are individuals that are highly collaborative. They understand the business. They work with the entire C-suite and they help drive growth. So my first skill is that, especially for a fractional CMO, that it's all about being a unifier. And the skill really required to do that is buy-in, the ability to get buy-in. I think that's typically the marketing function in organizations that are bringing on an interim or fractional CMO, is that marketing has been neglected. There's probably elements of the foundation that have holes in it, and marketing has to come in and figure out what needs to be fixed and make sure that everybody's aligned and agrees with those priorities and can get things fixed. In our book, Standout Marketing, we identified 5 key competencies for top marketers that want to help their organization stand out, but also build their career. And in this one, this is a skill that we call activator. So not only did they get things done, but that a big part of getting things done is making sure we're getting the right things done. And so, I think of it as readying the troops, right? And getting everybody kind of marching in the same direction. So that's my first one, activator / getting buy-in. The second, I would say, is being the voice of the customer. So generally, again, in these types of organizations, customer research has been neglected. Regular feedback from customers is likely not coming in. And so it's really building a consistent process on how to get customer feedback and research, but also setting the stage that no, we are not just going to start executing things, ideas of the day or flavors of the day, the bright shiny object, as we like to call it, unless we know 100% that it's relevant and useful to customers. And so the best way to do that is to kind of set the stage that marketing really should be the voice of the customer. And so doing that customer research, setting up a research practice, and then, again, I'll go back to the book real quick. We call this one usefulness, because you have to be able to connect the dots to what your company sells to what customers find relevant and useful. Otherwise, the answer is no, we're not going to execute it. And then third, I would say, is building a team that knows and understands the business. So again, because of the kind of fractional interim nature, the reality is you're not going to be there permanently. And so you're leaving behind people that need to be able to pick up the baton and execute kind of the strategy and the vision that you've laid out. So this piece really starts with bringing them in to understanding the vision and the roadmap and how to build that strategy that is aligned with business goals. Because I see this happen a lot, where it's like the head person leaves and then all of a sudden they go back to the team is there and kind of becomes order takers of, well, we just are now starting to execute things because they don't necessarily understand the business. So, that would be my third one is educating the team on business drivers and getting the team to speak business instead of just speaking marketing and all the jargon that we have made up for marketers. So those are my top three.
Matt, what are your thoughts on Stacey's top three?
Unsurprisingly, those are brilliant, and I agree with all of them. I certainly have some overlap with those three, and you might have seen me actually clapping at voice of the customer. It's one of my pet peeves about marketing organizations is that very often the marketing team is doing marketing stuff, creating content or running a campaign or whatever, and I'll ask a question like, well, do you think a customer or a target prospect would care about this? And if so, how do you know? Or when was the last time you talked to a customer? Or have you sat in on a sales meeting and just listened to hear what kind of questions they have or what things they're stressed out about? And I'm shocked at how infrequently that happens.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
I really like, Stacey, this is your brilliance is obviously the McKinsey study brings a lot of light to it. The idea of the unifier and this unifier and activator is amazing. I guess one of the questions I have about that is, and we're obviously talking about, a fractional CMO and how to succeed in that realm. It's hard to be trusted, to be respected, to be central in that endeavor when you are temp staff, for lack of a better term. So how, and I think, I'd love to hear from both of you on how do you establish that credibility when you are a known entity that is going to be a short-term, somebody, there was a joke somebody said the other day talking about a fractional CMO versus a CMO, and the punchline was, you don't bring the fractional CMO home with you for Christmas dinner. You sort of date them and don't really bring them into all the family drama. So as a fractional CMO, how do you accomplish that when you don't have very much time and you probably have a little bit more scrutiny?
So I can comment on my thoughts there. So one of my points, not to sort of jump ahead here, is that I think, especially so for a fractional CMO, it's important that you are both be the expert and that you also listen, right? And so this goes back to the being a unifier, right? So I think you want to have the confidence to say, not necessarily that you have all the answers, right? But that you are able to understand the problems and make recommendations, and that you have a lot of experience in doing that and executing and delivering great results, right? So you want to have that confidence. However, I think you will undermine yourself if you just go in like a bull in the china shop saying, I know, I've been here, I've done that, and I know how to do it all, and I'm just charging through. So just come along for the ride because I know exactly how to do this. I think that will cause you more problems, even if you think that's the right path to take. So I think you have to strike the balance of, I'm an expert here, but I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to hear your ideas. I'm going to hear about your business. I'm going to learn about your customers to the degree that I'm able to. And I'm going to take some recommendations from you based on what you've done so far, what's worked, what hasn't worked, things like that. And so I think you have to be able to blend those things in order to be a unifier. You can't be too much of either of those. You have to find the right balance.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with that. I think, how I approach it is really with that consulting view where, I like to say that there's no one size fits all in marketing, but that there is a framework to build a marketing plan and strategy and team. And so, it's the same thing as like if you're building a custom house. Every single house does not look the same, but the process of hiring the architect and getting the blueprints and getting all the drawings is the same. And so, I like to approach it kind of exactly how Matt said, where there's a big part of kind of discovery and listening, right? And making sure that you're taking everybody's feedback into account, but also that you're laying out a roadmap for what good looks like. Because again, as I mentioned, there's probably holes in their foundation and they're just not aware of them. And so rather than coming in with like, okay, I already know what other problems are and let's just start tackling them and fixing them, you've got to spend time on getting that buy-in. And the best way to do that really is to lay out that framework, doing the interviews internally and saying, okay, here's what I heard from everybody. Here's what I think the gaps are. And then, here's a proposed process that we can all go through to get everybody aligned. And generally it's like, oh yeah, somebody finally has a framework that we can, and some steps that we can walk through, and they're just kind of waiting for that. They don't know. Otherwise they're going to Google and, random YouTube videos trying to figure out kind of what to do. And so I think presenting a framework helps streamline that process a little bit and show that you have a process so that people can kind of quickly get on board.
Yep, absolutely. Matt, so let's round out your list.
Yes. Okay. So number 3 on my list is guiding principles. And so you might think of these as values or something like that. I prefer the term guiding principles, and I've got them for me and my practice so that when I go to a client, I can say, here's what you can expect from us. Here's kind of our guiding framework for all the work that we're going to do. For most customers, as a fractional CMO, I like to tailor those for the marketing team to fit their business. And I think it is back to the unifying and buy-in, right? It creates this sort of structure to say, here's what we all agree to. Here's how we will behave. These are the kinds of things that you can count on from us. And it's also sort of a good reminder because as Stacey said, when you are coming in, there's usually either a lack of credibility for the marketing organization, or maybe the founders or somebody else was doing it before, and they have their strong ideas. But if you can get to the point of saying, here's our guiding principles, and that thing that you just recommended that we do, it doesn't fit, it doesn't align with that. And so if you can get that sort of structure and framework, I think that's valuable. It also provides the benefit that however small the marketing team is that you have, or however big, I suppose, right, that there is the guidance that they have for the work that they do when you're not there, right? So that as a fractional CMO, you don't have enough time to be involved with everything. And so it's good to be able to say, go through this criteria, these guidelines, and if the work you're doing aligns with these, then you're probably doing the right thing, right? And it's not going to work 100% of the time, but at least it's a good guidepost. So that was number 3 on my list. I already talked about number 2, which is be the expert and listen and be open. And then my number 1 on the list for fractional CMO is clear priorities with communication. And so what I mean by that is even in a full-time job, I guess I've never had a role in my career where I felt like there was plenty of time to just do everything. Priorities are always important. But when you are fractional, it is so much more important because your time is limited. Usually you are working for somebody who has big, giant ideas about all the amazing stuff their company can do, and in turn, all the great things that you can do. And probably you can, but you're going to have to be selective about how you spend your time and energy. Make sure you're focused on the things that are going to be most impactful. Find a good balance of the strategic work and some of the short-term tactical stuff that you can see results from. And you just have to have ongoing communication with especially whoever's hired you, usually the CEO, but also the rest of the organization as well. So everybody's on board with, yes, there are 100 things that we know are broken and that we want to fix. Here are the 2 that we're going to go work on right now.
Yeah. Stacey?
That's it. You
Thoughts
got
on
my
that?
list.
I love it.
That's a
Yeah,
good list.
I think it's exactly. I love the guiding principles, values, driver, because I think one of those, it's getting everybody aligned. Like one of mine, for example, is going back to being the voice of the customer, that is not optional, that we're not going to sit
Yes.
here in a room and all, talk about the customer and all of our opinions of the customer, but we're actually going to get real customer feedback so we can shut
Yeah.
down the battle of internal opinions.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. In fact, one of the variations of the guiding principles that I just did for the company that I was in Dubai for, I've literally got 5 guiding principles, and the one in the center in a different color is customer, right? And so we're on the same page with that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Outstanding. So just really quick, we've got some questions coming in. We'll definitely hit on those. Also, if you haven't asked a question, you have a question, we'd love to hear it. I know we've got lots of things around tech stack, around process, about who is the internal client, those types of things. And so we'll dive into that. And then I'll share my top list. And I think it might be a little bit of a complementary perspective. We tend to, at Grow, we tend to work with earlier stage, more emerging companies. Speed is paramount. They need to see results very quickly. They've got something that they need to show to someone else. Time is an enemy. And then even with the private equity backed companies that might be larger in the $100 million plus, space, there's still some initiative or some change. The reason why you're there is to get over some hurdle to get to the next phase, or quite honestly, and earmuff it if you don't like cuss words, you're there to unfuck something. And so there's a lot of work to be done there. So I'll dive in from that perspective of what I've got, which is the number 3 is align to a vision quickly. If the company has a stated vision, amazing, great. If it doesn't, be that consultant, that fractional CMO that gets people into that aligned vision, and do it quickly. It really doesn't take, and I'm sure we've all run workshops of various types, brand workshops, those types of things, to really get that vision, the values, the voice, and the values, in the vision, mission, voice, and values all aligned. It is amazing how easy that is to do. Not always easy, but how effective that is to get people feeling more confident about things. Which leads me to the second thing, communicate with confidence. And the term confidence is a little bit of an interesting thing. You don't want to be cocky, but you want to be confident. What I've been binge watching lately is all of these founder shows. So Super Pumped, the story of Uber. We Crashed, right? The story of WeWork. I also just finished watching The Dropout, which is the story of Theranos and Elizabeth Holmes. The other one is Inventing Anna, which is all about her deceiving people around her in a sort of high class New York world. And confidence, con man, the term con man comes from confidence man, right? And a lot of times in marketing, we can feel like we are trying to give a lot of confidence without any context or without any grounding. And so that's where marketing gets a perception of being a con man. And especially as a fractional CMO, you can look like a con man if you don't communicate if you are overconfident or you want to. My point is, you want to communicate with confidence, but you want to communicate in a way like what Matt said, asking questions, being a good listener, and then making sure you're understanding people before you move forward. The number one thing I think is the three P's. So I kind of cheated and put the three P's into one, but pipeline, process, and pass it on. You've got to build that pipeline. It doesn't matter what your mission is to do. If you're not doing something that shows some progress through some type of automated system or some type of manual system, there's going to be a question as to what the efficacy of that engagement was. The process, building the process so that it can be passed on to someone else. You may be there because they have a director of marketing that just isn't quite senior enough to really understand how to build things, but they can execute like crazy. You may be there because there is a need for this strategic ability, but a company wants to take its time to find somebody, and there's nothing better you can do than to hand it over to somebody with a silver bow on it or a gold bow on it that sets them up for success. Then you not only have a friend for life, but you've also got a potential fractional CMO once they're done with their engagement, as an employee at a company. So those are mine. Align to a vision quickly, communicate with confidence, and then the pipeline, the process, and be able to pass that on. Stacey, Matt, thoughts about my perspectives there?
I mean, I love that you brought in the confidence piece, because I think that ultimately marketing is one of those positions that, and especially sort of in a fractional capacity where you have to demonstrate that really quickly, right? And they, ultimately the engagement either works or doesn't, kind of based on that piece. If you come in and don't have that confidence, you'll spend the entire engagement really trying to get buy-in, and then it doesn't feel very successful. So I think that's really a baseline kind of starting point. So I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, great stuff, Brett. And I would extend the align to a vision one step more. And maybe you meant this as well, but I think it's so important to be explicit about what the goals are. And so the simple example I give is, if the goal is to go generate $10 in cash in the next hour, then you might think to yourself, okay, well, I'll go beg for money on the street corner, or I'll offer to deliver lunches to people in the office and get $1 per lunch I deliver. But if you say the goal is to generate $100 million in revenue in the next year, new revenue in the next year, that's very different, right? And your strategy and your tactics for going to achieve that are going to be different. And similarly, the investments required to go achieve that are going to be very different. So if you're clear upfront about those goals, it fundamentally changes your approach, your marketing approach, and how you're going to go deliver.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so I think we're going. We've spent a little bit more time. We're going over a little bit, and I know that Anna, our show producer, is pushing us to wrap up. But I'm not done yet with the panels of experts. So, I want to just sort of there are a couple of things. Number one is we have a couple of questions that came in, and I'd love to get some take or some insight on those. And then number two is I would love to hear from each of you. What is the biggest difference between a skill set for a full-time CMO and the delta? What's the biggest difference that you need as a fractional CMO? Sort of what's that delta? What's that difference? And I'm happy to start, or if anybody wants to start or think about it. Actually, I'll go ahead and start just because I've got it on the tip of my tongue. I'll give you guys a moment to think about it. I think one of the, there's the idea of singular focus versus context switching. And as a fractional CMO, you may have multiple engagements. In my experience, having 3 engagements of various, varying sizes, and we can talk about there's, fractional CMOs that are maybe full-time. Obviously, that's one. Or it may be one medium size, which is half the time, and then a couple of really small guided advice type of engagements. But as a full-time CMO, you're focused. It may be across multiple products, but it's one brand, one vision, one CEO, and one executive team. As a fractional CMO, you have to be able to context switch, compartmentalize, turn one off and turn one back on. As much as you try to time box and focus one day for this client, one day for that client, it just never happens that way. So that's my big thing. Matt, what do you think is a big delta between full-time and fractional?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And one of the consequences of what you just described is that you have to accept that you will not be as deep of an expert on the business as you are used to in a full-time role, right? So this is a little bit in contrast to what we heard from Stacey earlier, and also a balancing act in that you need to understand the customers, you need to understand the business, but you have to accept that you won't be able to understand it as deeply. So you have to count on your customer, your peers at your customer account to be able to provide some of the context that you might normally like to do, but can't get as deep into because you just are bandwidth limited.
Yep. Got it. Stacey, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I feel like maybe the thing I would add is just something about the relationships obviously are going to be different, right? With the rest of the C-suite. You're not a real member of the permanent team. And so knowing that you kind of have to, I guess, go back to what Matt said about having your guiding principles. What are those things that you're going to insert yourself into that, because at the end of the day, it's your reputation as well, right? You want the engagement to go well and you want to leave the company, better than when you found it. And so I think identifying what some of those things are so that you can figure out, yes, I'm inserting myself in these certain decisions because they may not necessarily think about you or think to invite you to certain conversations that are happening that aren't, depending on how they're defining the role of marketing. I mean, I see this a lot. And I think there was a question in the group that says, well, how often are you brought into tech decisions, MarTech? And some of it is like, well, you either, like, if that's one of your principles, it's like you insert yourself in that conversation and that decision, that these are not happening in silos because it does have an implication for marketing and for customers. And so I think some of that is just kind of defining that ahead of time because you're not necessarily going to be top of mind like you would be if you worked there full time. And so I think that would be the biggest difference.
Got it. Okay, so speed round. We're going to dive into a couple of these questions and just try to speed round it and then wrap up to allow people to be on their way. How often are you involved in deciding or recommending the tech stack for marketing?
In my experience, there's usually some amount of tech already in place. And I think this is a choose your battle sort of thing. Like, just because I have experience with certain tools doesn't mean those are the right tools. And there's a pretty high switching cost. So if you're fractional, you're already bandwidth constrained. Unless it's really bad, I tend to say, let's make the best of what we do have in general. Now, sometimes I do experience things where either they've just made a bad choice and it's not a great tool, or more often they've invested in a tool but not in the people part of it, meaning they haven't done the training or allocated the time to actually make use of that tool. So I think that's actually a bigger factor for me. So, but at a broad level, I think it's a pick your battles kind of thing. And for most of the elements of the tech stack, I generally believe there are several good choices. There's also some bad ones, and that's easy to say, hey, this one stinks. Stop, get rid of this thing. But more often it's, if you're, I don't know, trading off between HubSpot and Salesforce or Marketo or whatever, something. Yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons in each, and I might have more experience in one than the other, but they can all work. And I don't want to force the business to mold themselves to me. I'd rather mold myself to the business.
So Stacey, different question for you. What's the frequency of your typical engagement? Or sorry, not frequency. How long is your typical engagement?
Yeah, so I was just, a long time, like, a year or more sometimes. And it kind of morphs depending into coaching the team, kind of moving from that role more into staying on as more in that advisor capacity. So it has depended. I mean, it's anywhere from 6 months, I think, on the short side to over a year on the other side.
Got it. All right, last question before we wrap up, and I just need a single digit from you. How many engagements can you have at a time and be successful at it? And how many have you done at a time and been successful, or where did you reach that breaking point?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's like 3 to 5. There's like a sweet spot there when I like to create things, I like to write, I like to have time to work on my own business and my own frameworks and my own IP. And so when I find myself getting stretched too thin and I don't have any time for that, then I'm like, okay, I got to pull back, because that's what I really enjoy. And I think that's what energizes me. And so I need time to be able to work on that versus being dealt out to all of these different companies.
Got it. Matt, how about yourself?
Yeah, I would say for me, it's a little bit less. I see Jen in the comments. Thank you, Jen. I'm probably there with you, probably more 2 or 3, but I'm self-aware enough to know that one of my problems is I tend to over deliver. It's one of the things I have to keep myself in check for. So this is probably another skill that you need to have is, when you're in that full-time role, you're like, I own this and I'm going to do what it takes to be successful in this role and help the business be successful. And you want that mentality, but there's a danger if you do that as a fractional and you've got 3 clients or 5 clients or however many, and you could really just over commit yourself that way. So I would say for me, it's probably 2 or 3.
Got it. I would say that the magic number for me, and of course, there's a lot of it depends, but the magic number is 3. Any more than that, and I'm mixing up all the Jims, the Johns, the Bobs calling in, or I'm mixing up the lingo, because you have to sort of become a good industry. You have to understand the shorthand of the industry. So for me, it's 3. And then my brain starts to pop off. All right, well, listen, we went a little bit longer, but I think this is really good as far as the conversation, as far as the depth. Thank you, Stacey Danheiser, who is the founder and CMO of Shake Marketing Group and author of many books that we would love to actually put into our show notes. 2 as many. When you haven't done, anything like
that is 2 more than I've done.
Yeah, exactly. And then Matt Pesce, thank you, my friend, managing partner of Resilience Growth Partners. On behalf of everyone here, myself and Anna at Grow Powerful, just want to say thank you. And don't forget to keep up with us. Go to growpowerful.io. We've got blogs, podcasts, video, oh my, all that stuff. So thank you, and we hope you have a great and incredibly productive week. Take care.
Awesome. Bye.